Hey, what's going on, everybody? AJ Shulo here, going to give you guys a main event breakdown for UFC Fight Night, Volkov versus Gane. Before we get into that, if you'd like to tail my bets for this event, you could do so at dailyfanmma.com/premium section, the premium betting hub section, or also betmma.tips /Anthony S364, where my bets are third-party tracked and verified as well. Getting into this matchup, got to think that the winner of this fight gets Francis Ngannou, especially with the recent news that, the fight between Ngannou and Lewis is in limbo, Derek Lewis, that is. So it makes the stakes for this fight that much higher. Got to really think with both guys on the momentum that they've been on, just being high-level fighters in the weight class as it is. And, they're fresh matchups for Ngannou. So I know that the fan base really likes that, getting a fresh guy in there, and people know that the first fight with Derek Lewis and Francis Ngannou was very, very uneventful. So I could easily see the winner of this fight, especially if they do so in a spectacular fashion, getting a shot at Francis Ngannou for the heavyweight strap. Getting into these two, obviously Volkov has a massive, massive experience edge. But one thing that I like about Gane is, despite being 8-0 professionally, he does not fight like a very green fighter. He's actually very, very experienced. He's a two-time national Muay Thai champion from France, and he passes the eye test just to perfection, essentially. I mean, we have only seen him tested in certain areas. We haven't seen Gane tested against like a high-level wrestler, a guy that really wants to push the pace against him, things like that. But the glimpses we have seen from Gane's game overall combined, he's looked tremendous. He's not the best wrestler in the division. Obviously, that title goes to Curtis Blades, but he does wrestle. He's got a good duck under double leg. We've also seen in his earlier UFC fights, he's got a submission game, heel hook specifically. So, and we know just from watching him strike, he is an excellent striker, in terms of his technique, his technical footwork, his overall mobility, his athleticism for this weight class. He's got good output, very good defense. He's very good at pot shotting, sticking and moving. So he hits you and you don't have enough time to react with a counter, doesn't hang out in the pocket too long, just very good at evading the shots. So Gane has been a very, very tough puzzle to solve for the UFC heavyweight division. He's won every round that he's fought in, and he's even got some finishes in there. Getting into Alexander Volkov, I've been very high on him as well. I've bet on him in the past, and I've always kind of considered him a pretty underrated fighter. Even looking at Volkov's losses, hindsight, they're not too bad. Again, he's going out there and dominating Derek Lewis, and it wasn't until Volkov got tired as the fight went on, Derek Lewis was able to catch him with a big shot late in round 3. It was a fight that Volkov was totally dominating from bell to bell, just in terms of the striking, nearly had Lewis out of there, and then Lewis just catches him with a big shot in round 3. Getting into his other loss, he was basically out-wrestled by Curtis Blades for 5 rounds. He just fought a superior wrestler, superior athlete to Curtis Blades, and just got taken down at will. Couldn't stay off of his back for long enough and lost a clear decision there. But despite that, he did a good job with his takedown defense. I thought his takedown defense in that fight looked better than ever. Despite getting taken down 10 plus times, it still looked a lot better than, say, it did in the Werdum fight or in the Timothy Johnson fight, where it looked, pretty much straight up dreadful, in certain sequences. So I like to see the improvements out of a guy like Volkov. And, I do think that, as his career progressed, he's not one of these guys that's kind of plateaued. I do generally believe that he's gotten better, as time's kind of gone on here. So it's a very, very intriguing stylistic clash, because when I look at them both, they excel as range strikers. They're both long and rangy for the division. Gane standing at 6'4" with an 81-inch reach. Volkov standing at 6'7" with an 80-inch reach. And they both kind of play the same outside game. Gane, like we talked about, just wants to stick and move on the outside. He's got very good straight punches. He's got crafty striking, varied striking, front kicks, body kicks, low kicks, he'll go high too, and he'll work the body as well, measure you at distance with his jab. And Volkov, kind of same thing, he utilizes his length, wants to keep distance. He's got a wide variety of kicks. He'll go high, he'll go to the body, he'll go to the leg as well. And then he'll mix up his boxing in there, of course, as well. And so they're both very good technically, but the difference that I see on tape that's very, very evident is Gane is better at playing that game because he's got superior mobility, athleticism, and technical footwork. When you watch Volkov strike, again, he's able to beat guys down the stretch due to his superior volume and pressure in pace, and kind of wear guys down. We saw that against, Walt Harris. He got, touched up a little bit early, nothing too severe, but, as the fight went on, his superior pace, cardio was able to wear Harris down and able to get a stoppage via body shot. Same thing against Alistair Overeem, was able to, volume Overeem up, hurt him a few times, and eventually get the stoppage in round 2. And so that's how Volkov typically wins fights. But Gane is just better than him at it, just better at evading, better technical footwork. When you watch Volkov move in the octagon, his footwork is actually plodding and flat-footed. Doesn't do the best job of moving. He's actually often at an athleticism disadvantage against guys like, Walt Harris and even this matchup. But the difference between the Harris matchup and the Gane matchup is that Gane just has much better cardio down the stretch than a guy like Harris does. Harris is a guy that historically goes out there, gets a quick finish, and if he doesn't, he tends to fatigue as the fight goes on. We saw that as recently as his last fight against Marcin Tybura, whereas we've seen Gane go out there and fight 5 rounds against Jairzinho Rozenstruik. And granted, it was a fight that he controlled the tempo at. He was just working at his own pace, didn't have to worry about too much from Rozenstruik. Rozenstruik was firing back with some counters, some powerful counters, some flurries occasionally. But for the most part, Gane was able to control the tempo from bell to bell. And I think he'll be able to do the same here. He has shown better cardio, better output of the two. And we have seen Volkov, slow down as the fight progressed. I mentioned the Derek Lewis fight, but he also slowed down against Fabricio Verdum. And, people remember that as, Verdum gas, which he certainly did. But Volkov was also very exhausted there and was able to, counter Verdum because Verdum just rushed at him, similar to like how he did against Stipe, counter him and knock him out cold. So I don't think that sequence will happen again here. Gane has definitely showed a lot more composure than a guy like Verdum does at times. And so I just tend to think that we get sort of a methodical range striking fight where I got to favor the guy who has better footwork, better mobility, better athleticism, better defense, and higher output. Volkov relies a lot on his range management for defense. He doesn't do a good job moving his head. Granted, he's got a good chin for heavyweight standards. I mentioned he got knocked out by Lewis, but historically he's shown to be durable over a large sample size. He relies on sort of just getting out of the way, backing his head in a straight line. And as a result, we've seen him tagged. We even saw that if you want to go back to the Derek Lewis fight, that was the sequence that, led him to getting knocked out. Lewis was able to close the pocket a bit more. Volkov didn't do as good job of measuring range, controlling it as the fight went on because he was getting tired. And we saw Lewis land just a colossal overhand right that just knocked Volkov to the canvas. And then Lewis was able to finish him with ground and pound. So should this fight go into the later rounds, I got to favor Gane. He's just shown the better output in cardio as the fight goes. And I do think he'll be able to control the tempo. Another thing that Gane has going in favor of him is the clinch exchanges in the wrestling and grappling exchanges. Now, Gane, like I mentioned, he's not the best wrestler in this division, but if there is a guy in this matchup who I think is more likely to have success in that realm, it would be Gane. I just think he's better in the clinch. Even though he's actually at a 20-pound weight disadvantage here, I think he's more physical than Volkov, just better technically with his clinch instincts, head positioning, underhooks, things like that. And he should be able to, mix those in to tire Volkov out, change the pace of the fight. And that could help him win rounds, win the cardio battle, win the clinch battle down the stretch, just make it better visual in the eyes of the judges, that is. And also the wrestling here. Again, I'm not expecting Gane to go out here and just dominate the wrestling exchanges. I would be surprised if he goes out here and gets 10 takedowns on Volkov or anything close to it like Curtis Blades did. But should there be a guy here to mix in a couple takedowns, I could predict maybe Gane anywhere from 1 to 4, I think is fair. I don't think he'll do a lot from top position because Volkov's actually very good. He's actually a very underrated submission grappler. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt. Similar to a guy like Chan Sung Jung that we saw last event, we just don't get to see it all that often. So people kind of forget about it. But when you actually see the guy on the ground, his guard is generally difficult to pass. He's generally difficult to get a lot of significant offense on. And I do think that, should there be takedowns here, should there be some top control to be had, they would more likely come from Ciryl Gane. So the wrestling exchanges, the clinch exchanges, the grappling exchanges, those should go in favor of Gane. Again, I'm not expecting him to dominate in that realm, but should there be a fighter that has a leg up on the other, that would be Ciryl Gane. And so I tend to think that Gane has those facets of this fight covered. Of course, Volkov is a step up in competition, no doubt about it. And we don't ever truly know how a fighter will do once they're tested, but got to trust the judgment here. And my judgment tells me that Gane is ready for this test. And I think he probably gets it done in a decision victory here. Volkov, like I said, he's generally shown to be durable. I wouldn't be, stunned if a late TKO happens. I don't think either guy has huge one-hitter quitter type power for heavyweight standards, that is. Of course, heavyweights have a certain level of power relative to the other weight classes. Like that's why the defensive aspect as a heavyweight is so important, because, literally any shot, from a fighter at this weight class, because the guys are so big and strong, could end the fight. But I tend to think that they both have around the same level of power. I would actually slightly favor Gane, and he would be the fighter, I think, with a bit more finishing upside, even though I think that most likely it goes to decision because, like I said, Volkov, generally tough to finish on the ground, generally tough to knock out. But I wouldn't be surprised by a Gane stoppage there. So official pick is going to be Ciryl Gane, and that's going to be my prediction for this event. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Going forward, I actually would like to do these main event breakdowns exclusively for this channel. Of course, things could be subject to change, but what I realized this past week or so is I want to give you guys like the most authentic AJ take, and that I want to give you guys a take on a fight where there's sufficient data for me to break it down. And we often see that with the main event. The main event always features two fighters with a lot of data on, they're being built up by the UFC, that sort of thing. Whereas some fights on the undercard, there's just a lot of unknowns. There's just a lot of things that are very difficult to quantify. And as a result, I could go on here and give a prediction, but it's basically like I have to preface, my analysis and my predictions in some of those fights with like, hey, take it with a grain of salt sort of mindset, right? And I want to give you guys like the sort of all-in approach, if you will, when I break down these fights. So again, things are subject to change. I'm just trying to experiment with it here. I know that if you guys have been following me last year towards the end, I did do these main event breakdowns exclusively, and they were very, very well. And I'm just able to go much more in depth than say I would in some just, sort of like just going through the motions of these like sort of prelim fights where, again, we just don't know a whole lot about these fighters, where they're at. We got some fighters coming in on this card with like massive layoffs, just a lot of red flags, that sort of thing. And so I'd rather just, give a main event breakdown, knowing that we have all the pieces of the puzzle we need to form a prediction with the analysis to back it up. And so let me know what you guys think of this. I'm always available on Twitter at AJ_SCHULLO. If you guys missed it, I'm actually on Instagram as well. AJ Shulo there as well. Please subscribe to this channel. Please like the video. Please spread the word. I want to keep going at this, and a lot of good things to come. Special announcement coming next week. Very, very excited. Actually, it's a big opportunity for me and you guys as well that I'm excited to share. But I'll keep you guys posted on that next week when we actually have a week off. So it's nice to have three big MMA cards this week, and we've got some other promotions going. I got Bellator, PFL, and UFC. But it's actually pretty nice here to get a break prior to McGregor Poirier 3, which is basically guaranteed to be awesome. So very much looking forward to the future, guys. Thank you guys so much for the support. Have a nice day and good luck.